I fully agree that current government's level of deconstruction and interference in our life, it's one of the sources of all of multiple movements growing up as a like even free city and eco living intentional communities, you name it, you can name it differently, and they all might be different. It just responds to the current government inability to perform, to be sure. But from other side, and again, recently reviewing the website as I was preparing myself to the Liberty on Our Life conference, I was reviewing websites of some speakers, participants who were new for me, learned a lot. And I found in one website, which actually big work, speaking about idea, were listed all kind of groups or community of like-minded people, as they name themselves, and divided in again, with all due respect, people have a right to be united against some certain ideas or principles. And as you mentioned, for example, meditation and herb healing or nature healing, like I really like this idea. I was meditating for years, and I hope that I will get to the stage when I again would do it. It's for me, it's really personal growth and understanding of your connection with earth, with universe, with people. It's a really spiritual awakening for many. But when I see on the list like 5 communities, like this only for Christians, this for Catholics, this for like Italian from different countries. With all due respect, I understand that people are looking for communities, and probably even local church which exist did not satisfy their needs at the point, or they're looking for, I don't know, different type of Christianity. But in several Arabic or Muslim, and here it's this, and here it's for Russian speaking, and here it's what. And I was looking at the beginning, okay, and when I was looking at it, but it's back to tribalism. Actually, like it's not, with all respect to the individual desire to be part of community of like-minded people, but people again dividing, and I understand that it probably different lifestyle, they live differently. So people should be clear what is this big why. Again, why you would like to live in a community, and I don't know for how long these communities can survive, because again, you live your part. People are not satisfied with current situation. I understand it completely, but what is the response? What is answer to this? Are we again dividing 3 people here, 5 people there, and we have our different circles? We can have circles of interest as we have different churches, different religious denomination in one city, and it's not new per se. Yes, but when I understood like some of the project of eco living, for example, and they say, okay, we'll take everyone, eco-anarchist, eco-socialist, anarcho-capitalist, anarcho-socialist, but it's a different people. It's a different in regards to not only ideology, what they're looking for. So what we are creating, is it dormitory? I always lived in multicultural society. It's a different topic. But when you're creating kind of new type of intentional community, and maybe far away from the big city or some civilizational points, plazas and parks and all this, and now you have people, different group with different ideology. For me, it's not community. Even I don't know. So people should be united, as far as I understand, against one common idea, and this idea should be big enough to overcome different opinions, which can make place. It's okay. But I don't know if you have experience with such a conversational ideas, and actually how you, if you define what kind of people like coming to you, probably there is waiting list or somebody is calling, how you define who would be good match for your community.
So I love that you touched on the topic of tribalism because I think it's such a fine line.
And the region tribe is something else. It just
No, because it really is. Really is this trend, and I love that you've been able to pick up on it, and in that we are almost re-tribalizing in some ways, and that our identity as humans is evolving. We no longer find it, I guess, enough to simply be, I'm Hispanic, I'm going to spend time with other Hispanic people. Ethnicity is probably not as powerful, and religion can be powerful, but all in all, I think we're just organizing ourselves more around people with shared values and shared lifestyle, which sometimes is reinforced by ethnicity, is reinforced by religion. But I find because more and more we're global citizens, so there are like people of all ages that are traveling more and moving more and intercontinental. And I find that what we use to identify ourselves as is changing. And what we want to organize ourselves physically, we're basically building physical spaces where we can have those shared values. The danger is, of course, I think what you picked up on is that it's an echo chamber of just a community of just Christians. And then we just have little pockets of, okay, here's where the Muslims live and here's the Christian lives. And this can actually be quite diversity and lacking in exchange and culture.
And I would say agnostics will not feel good as well. Even just humanitarian or you say global citizens with different look, I can spend one conversation or other to go to listen to speak, but to have community, you need to have celebrations together. You need to have events, some, I don't know, community events together. Actually, even sharing the food, it's a different food requirement. It's kind of details, but it's very important. First of all, you need to satisfy different requirements.
Some people do actually organize whole communities around diets, like just to make their lifestyle easier. This is what I'm saying, like either values or lifestyle is a really good way to organize around for a community. It's easier
Lifestyle, yes, but ideas
and
of
trickier.
cultural, but it's more
Absolutely.
complicated. It's more complicated. Even meditation on all this holistic practice actually united people from different walks of life and religious affiliation. I just read in your articles and had resonated with me the topic of eco gentrification. And probably some people would need clarification on what is about, because I remember when the like 5, 6 years ago, the first time I've heard about gentrification, I didn't understand what is about. But later, in practical sense, the new development, yes, in this case, it might be eco development or some construction coming to already established, I would say, society. It's what I've seen in Mexico. Yes, in Riviera Maya, this area, you know what I'm speaking about. Tulum with local people, Playa del Carmen, which I'm very familiar with and visiting, and like old buildings are demolished and new nice eco living hotels, from luxury to the shacks, from meditation retreats to the some really wild type of communities taking place, and local people not feel good sometimes for the reason. So how do you define this eco gentrification, and what is implication for existing communities you observed when actually foreign newcomers coming to build eco villages and intentional communities in Mexico and other countries of Latin America?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I've written about eco gentrification in my publication Terenity, and specifically in the context of people from wealthier or more resourced and advantaged places on Earth moving to countries where land is cheap and they can buy land, build a community, and then typically fill the community with expatriates, people from other countries that can afford their really jacked up prices. It's so crazy the way some people, yeah, buy the land really cheap and then flip it and just add an enormous amount of margin to it, because this is a pattern that I've seen. And it's definitely disheartening because there's just like a lack of context, and it typically results in prices being driven up for locals and locals being priced out of housing options and so on. All the common hallmarks of gentrification happen. So I'm not going to talk about those because those are commonplace. What I do want to talk about is this trend happening in a world that is more toxic, more polluted, more developed, is that pristine nature areas are becoming a bit like a suburban to wealthier people who can afford to live remotely, who don't work or work online and enjoy like the low cost of living in other countries while earning money equivalent to the earning power of their home country. And this is just a trend that I think we'll continue to see because it's been shown that nature regulates your nervous system. Having clean air to breathe, just having a beautiful view is something that will only continue to rise in value if we don't like tone back the rapid pace of deforestation and development and just building senselessly. So that's what's more troublesome to me, is that kind of treating nature as like, oh, I'm running away to pristine nature because it's nature out here. But then you tear down trees to build your community. And then someone buys the lot next to you and tears down trees to build their nature community. And before you know it, you have all of these, and this is something I've personally seen, like all of these communities in an area that claim to be sustainable or claim to be regenerative, but they're essentially human settlements in what was once pristine nature. So there is, to their credit, they often are introducing more biodiversity. They're planting trees in the wake. They're putting down regenerative food systems. And they're using permaculture. But I just want people to be wary of that trend. And I'm not saying I fall in a very morally ambiguous part of the spectrum, because on one hand, I think we're global citizens. And I think borders are arbitrary and we should be free to roam and free to call any place on earth our home, but being mindful of and making amendments to the privileges that we bring and the effects that we have, just our presence in certain areas of having whiter skin and healthier wallets, is that living or moving to like Latin American countries, for example, as a gentrification. And I call it eco gentrification because it is essentially gentrifying nature spaces and introducing all kinds of issues of privilege and what price we're willing to put on nature. So I would recommend to people, for example, following you, that it's not wrong to move to another country, but you want to really research the project or the community that you want to move to, and really doing your best to include locals, whether that's like reducing the language barrier, learning the language yourself, involving people as much as possible by employing, getting them in as owners, getting them in as like mixing in locals as much as possible versus just building these spaces that are like only for expatriates.
Yes, and actually, first of all, I personally don't feel any guilt of my color of skin, because I think the whole notion it's racist by itself. But I'm fully aware that, and as an immigrant, I was coming to the different countries, but it's important our intention. Because even if with a project, and I know in Tulum, maybe you know better, they were trying not to keep trees. I don't say that it's all worked ideally, but to build inside existing nature. And by the way, when not only foreigners make money, locals, I would say, just people coming because they understand that on a level of economy, it's good for the region, it's good for the country to attract people with ideas, to attract money, investment. It's a boost to economy. And let's be honest, what's happening, at least from my perspective, over the last years, it's a competition between countries to attract more young people from different countries from the West, but young people with ideas, with desire to even to build community, with money, with investment. So I see a lot of positivity, but it's me. And I understand that local people might have different opinion because it's disrupting, but okay, it's up to the local government probably to explain to them. And it's up to us to be better version of newcomers, I would say, and to show a respect, at least respect and understanding when it's reasonable. I would say this way. So, what is your vision now for the future of sustainable or intentional communities in the US? And you now join community in US, in Mexico, which is in between, in Latin America. In your opinion, what is the eco-living villages landscape in Europe and other continents? I'm just trying to get your global vision for the different continents in regards to living and development.
You're asking about my vision for Eco Village development.
Future, for the future. And I understand that there is a difference between eco village in the US, say Mexico, and Costa Rica you spend time, or it's mostly countries where it's took place lately. So do you see it's going to be new communities, like more development of such communities, even they slight different?
Absolutely. So I don't think the trend of community building is going to stop. I think a lot of even real estate developers are turning their eye instead of building just regular apartment buildings, they're building co-livings and skyrise co-livings. People who might normally build a housing development are now turning towards community building and eco-village design principles and sustainable design. I think just the trends of sustainability in general are really the only thing that makes sense from both a planetary perspective as well as a materials and cost perspective. I think that in general, all real estate and land development will eventually trend in that direction. And so my vision is that I've been working for a few months as the marketing director of the Global Ecovillage Network, which represents 30 plus years. They were established in.
That's why I'm asking you, because you are source of information and inspiration, and you have all the information. So tell us what we're going to expect for the next 30 years at least.
I just expect that more of these design principles, which like members of the network have been honing for many decades, is that these different design principles, these different frameworks, everything encompassed in Eco Village design is now going to be implemented and refined. And I just see that as the trend of like, okay, people are going to be building communities. People are already building communities. It's quite impressive how much I turn around and someone wants to buy land or wants to buy this house or wants to move into a community and find a community that suits their lifestyle, whether it's like something very small or something very ambitious. We want to build a city. We want to build a city that only takes crypto. We want to build a city that focuses on longevity and allows us to. These are all trends in the movement. You're very aware.
I know. But speaking about eco living, but I believe it's not eco living. For me, it's what I say. Intentional communities, maybe in the cities, or it's in eco living as well. Because say for some scientific research like longevity, or it might be different how to survive in the nature. It might be this kind of research as well. So is it part of eco living? All these trends of Bitcoin, yes, but what do you do with Bitcoin in the nature?
So, yes, people are rather disillusioned with the blue light and the concrete jungles that like modern society forces us into. I think many people are rediscovering what it means like to use technology, to leverage technology, but then to just go outside and see the sun and breathe fresh air is like such a God-given right. I'm not religious, but I think it's a human right to be able to enjoy nature. And with natural spaces having been severely diminished in some ways, I think we're actually trending towards wanting to restore them and develop. And when I say develop, I don't necessarily mean putting buildings on them, although that is also the trend of wanting to build buildings of the future. If you ask me my future minded perspective, and absolutely people want to innovate and like architecture that mimics nature, architecture that is smart, so empowered by technology, so it's self-heating and self-cooling. There's a lot of trends in the way we can use technology to live more ecologically. So I see all of that trending in that direction. And my mission is just to support that by creating both educational and storytelling resources, gather data on these types of trends, and then figure out all of those common mistakes that people make to help them avoid making them. So that is, I definitely see as my life's mission. Future wise, I expect more trends in like real estate, wellness, hospitality to trend towards building community and integrated types of living that support a lifestyle, whatever that is. But certainly more like people, I think, are craving holistic well being, living longer, enjoying life longer. And that is something I see as a trend just in this more international space of people wanting to build a variety of communities.
As a executive director of operations in the past, recently at Region Tribe, and now in your new roles, what are some of the key initiatives you're currently working on to promote eco living, sustainable living, or community building? I don't know now. Like you are in all of these very important areas, and they're not inseparable. Yes, it's all should come together. What is your work now about?
Yes, well, I agree with that statement. And I would definitely say the focus of my work now is shifting the paradigm towards the adoption of these holistic frameworks and principles that I believe will allow us to shift our society to live within planetary limits. Really, since 3 years ago, I've been working on what was Terenity. And this year, at the beginning of the year, I launched a publication that focuses on some of the technical aspects of building a startup city, designing and maintaining an intentional community, and diving into the resources to make it happen. I've written about 40 articles in this 52-week long year. And I've been very excited to just weekly share very deep dives into my own personal journey, as well as an assessment of different tools available to people. Really, I think a lot of it is demystifying community and like connecting the dots. There are a lot of dots out there with that seem unrelated, but putting resources in one place, I think, really helps people. And the publication itself has received a lot of praise, which I'm very humbled by. Thank you. And I started out this year working as the marketing director for a more commercial eco-village called La Ecovilla in Costa Rica. Very ambitious in projects of high integrity in the San Mateo region of Costa Rica. And actually, sorry? It's technically in the Alajuela region, but it's in a town called San Mateo. And I actually left that job because I had my research for regenerative communities sponsored by a group called the Blue Dot Project, who are building a fund to invest in developing regenerative communities. They see it as an absolute trend in investment as well. So they were building a portfolio of projects to invest in that had regenerative business aims. And the first one of those was a group of indigenous peoples, rather a nation of indigenous people that owned a very large territory in Colombia and was buying back parcels that had technically illegally been sold to other people in order to regenerate those parcels that had been degraded by agriculture that was very extractive and used a lot of toxic chemicals. So they were shifting that back. And so I was working with them in Colombia. And then I actually came to the US to join this community that I now live in. It's on 4.1 acres in Southern California, where I've lived before. I've lived previously here, but I'm just very excited to be back in my natural environment because in the context of gentrification, I actually felt like I was just more at home, more culturally relevant, more able to just be here without necessarily representing any sort of like threat essentially to the well-being of the people that I was surrounded by. And currently, I'm the marketing director for the Global Ecovillage Network. And we're working on amazing, exciting projects, such as universities are approaching us to now take curriculum that we've already designed, but to teach these ecovillage principles to masters in business and liberal arts, as well as previously, there's been work done on the Ecovillage Development Program, which involved 22 countries in Africa that expressed interest.
Interesting. What is one key piece of advice you would give someone from our continent? Or we are North America, someone who's starting their journey in building or joining in Eco Village community. What are the first steps they need to do?
I always recommend people to travel to different communities to test them out, but also to get a sense of what community can be, because communities can vary widely between themselves. And so it actually prepares you so that when you finally do pick a place, you're aware of all the different ways it can be done, and possibly even done better than that particular community that you're choosing because it's a good fit. This was just my personal experience. I traveled to different eco villages and communities looking for one that felt right. And it wasn't until I visited here where I am today back in May that I felt like, oh, wow, I could live here and I could enjoy it. And I really love the people here. So certainly getting out and trying different communities, I think is really important to actually making a good choice. And another one is really to dive into the movement as much as possible. Listen to podcasts like yours, try and collect as much information as possible, investigate, because there are a lot of existing resources. There's so many existing resources that could help people connect with or build the community that they seek. So really just doing a lot of your own research as much as possible, getting connected in the movement, I think will lead to some pretty surprising results, because there are a lot of people out there that share that same vision, that whether it's your vision or my vision or someone else's vision, there are like-minded people who can share that vision with you. I think we're rather lucky to live in a global world. And so connecting with people online is another thing I typically recommend people. You might really find that there are people locally that you can meet with in person, which I think is the priority when you're looking for connections. But we're so privileged to meet people with high levels of commonality and values that why not use that? And then finally, just read a lot, take courses, get community skills before you're just thrown into a situation of sharing space with people.
And I know that region tribes provide consultations or even courses. Is it correct? The region tribe group that you were working with.
Hmm. Region Tribe offers consultations as well as a training program called Region Agent Program. And so those are some offerings available through Region Tribe. And then also Jen offers consulting with some of the network's most experienced veterans in the movement, people who have spent years refining this, living in community, a wealth of research. Many of these people have written entire books about eco villages and community principles. So there's another wealth of resource. I think Global Eco Village Network has amassed so many resources. They're very well checking out, as well as IC.org, those are intentional communities. And then, of course, Free Cities. There's just a lot of groups out there that are attuned towards building these types of spaces. So I can share with you my list and maybe you can provide it in the show notes for your listeners.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much. And looking ahead, it's last question, and I really appreciate your time. Looking ahead, what are the next big steps for your Terenity in newsletters that I so like in expanding the reach and maybe depth of its impact? Are there specific regions or demographics that you aim to target next?
I don't have currently any big plans for the publication, but through Terenity, I'm working on a smart village for longevity based in Sardinia. It's not an organization. I'm working on a longevity village that will be empowered with technology in Sardinia. We're building houses and apartments and a certified lab to conduct longevity research. Sardinia is one of
I'm very interested. We need to meet in some time because I was following this area. Like I didn't know about the project, but it's one of the blue zones. Sardinia, it's one of the blue zones. Uh,
correct. And we're actually looking for a CFO and project manager. Me and my business partner who owns a plant-based longevity supplements company. We're developing this place to have a research lab for longevity, a wellness hospitality center, and as well as circular systems and self-sufficient systems so that we're sourcing our own energy, that we're sovereign in that way. And we're also going to be looking at developing and asking essentially for that part of Sardinia, which has already been earmarked as a special economic zone, for this particular area in Sardinia to be considered a macro. Because Sardinia, there's already several regions that have been approved. So there's precedent for us to approve this region to be part of it as well. So we're looking for people longevity companies who want to partner to establish there as well as conduct their research and land development. We've done 10-year projections. We already have the land. We're looking to acquire it over 5 years. Yeah, very much inviting in. Yes.
I've been in Sardinia. I like it, but I've been in a main city and I visited some village with amazing frescoes. It's more like touristic place. I understand that this community will be far away. Yes.
It is isolated. I think it's about an hour from Cagliari, though. So it's not too far. Cagliari has an international airport. So typically that's for me the max of like how far you want to be from a main central hub. So that's exciting to me. That's what I'm working on. Those are some of my projects. Also working on an accelerator for regenerative village projects that to be invested in and to work with specialists to get their regenerative village started. And yeah, those are all things I'm very excited about. And I'm super happy to be able to share with you about them on your podcast.
Thank you very much. And I believe for my 50 plus community, it will be especially interesting. And I will invite you in some time, maybe when you will have more information about practical steps. And by the way, one of the next guests I have is longevity specialist, scientist from United States. So I'm into these topics as well.
I love it. Please connect us.
Yes. Thank you very much and I was really enjoying the conversation. And today I was speaking with Nicole Reese. Thank you. And that is a wrap for today's episode with incredible Nicole Reese. Big thanks to Nicole for sharing her profound insights and inspiring us with her journey into sustainable living and intentional communities. As always, we hope you found this conversation enlightening and that it sparked more curiosity about sustainable living. If you are eager to learn more about Nicole's work, remember to check out Terenity and Region Tribe for more resources and information. We'd love to hear your thoughts and questions, so don't hesitate to contact us on our social media channels or drop us a message. Remember, every little step we take towards sustainability counts, and it's something we can all work on together. Thanks for tuning in to Age of Reinvention. Until next time, this is Emily Bron encouraging you to stay curious, stay informed, and take those steps towards an eco-living life or any lifestyle you envision. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. See you next time.